Long ago, it is said that a man married 2 women and had 2 sons. These 2 sons were completely alike, as if they were twins. After a while, their father died, and then one of his wives died. One of the sons became an orphan, so his father's wife raised him. However, she wanted to take better care of her son. Because the 2 sons were very similar, she could not tell them apart, so she had to treat them equally. One day, the woman thought of a trick to distinguish her son from his brother. She pretended to be sick, lay down on her bed, and placed a needle and thread in front of her. The boys were outside tending the sheep. When he entered the house, her son saw his mother sleeping on her bed. He ran towards her to check on her, saying, "What's wrong, mother? Are you sick?" Here, his mother grabbed him and put the needle and thread in his ear as a sign to identify him and distinguish him from his brother. This woman began to take care of her son and neglect his brother. She gave them bread, good bread to her son, and bad bread to his brother. The orphan brother began to feel mistreated and discriminated against by his stepmother. He was sad and in a difficult situation. One day, the 2 brothers sat down next to a well to rest and eat their bread. The orphan asked his brother to each throw a piece of bread into the well. His brother replied, "Why, brother?" The orphan brother said to him, "Wait, and you will understand everything." The orphan threw a piece of bread, and it floated on the surface of the water. When the second brother threw his piece, it sank to the bottom of the well. The orphan said, "You see, brother, I asked you this to show you how your mother treats us. You are in the depths of her heart, just as your good bread sank to the bottom of the water. As for me, my bread floated on the water because it is bad and because I am not important to her. Now, brother, I cannot stay with you like this. I will go far away so as not to upset your mother." But his brother refused and said, "You will not leave me. I love you, and I cannot live without you. I will tell my mother to change your treatment of me." The orphan brother refused and said, "I have made my decision, and I will leave." His brother was sad and said, "Where will you go, and how can I be reassured about you?" The orphan replied, "I will plant a tree here in front of the well. If I see it grow and become green, this means that I am fine, and if I see it turn yellow and become weak, this means that something bad has happened to me." On the way, he passed by a shepherd, so he got off his horse and sat down to rest a little with the shepherd. The young man noticed that the shepherd's sheep were grazing in a land that had only a little grass, while on the other side was a land full of greenery and plenty of food. The young man was surprised and asked the shepherd, "Why don't you graze your sheep on the other side where there is plenty of grass and food available?" The shepherd told him that there is a large wolf controlling this land and no one dares to approach it. The young orphan asked him, "Where can I find this wolf?" The shepherd replied, "He lives behind this mountain." The young man said, "Let's investigate." The shepherd refused and warned him not to approach his land. But the young man reassured him and said, "We will watch from afar and we will not enter his land." The young man and the shepherd went to see the wolf, and the young man discovered that the wolf lives with a large pack of wolves, and this matter will be very difficult. The young man and the shepherd returned, sad and hopeless. But the young man did not give up and said to the shepherd, "A trick has come to my mind that we should plan." the shepherd asked. "What is the trick?" The young man said. "We will go to a place near the mountain and dig a big hole and put a piece of meat in it to be a trap. When the wolves get close, we will drop a big net on them and hang it from a tree. At that moment, we will attack the wolves and kill them with swords while they are hanging from the trap." The shepherd was impressed by the young man's intelligence and courage and was happy with the idea. He hurried with him to prepare it. Early in the morning, the young man and the shepherd went next to the mountain. They dug a big hole under a tree and hung the net in it. They put the piece of meat in the hole and hid behind a distant tree, carrying their swords and waiting for the wolves to appear. Shortly, the wolves quickly smelled the meat. So they hurried towards the hole and they all got down inside. And at that moment, the shepherd was extremely happy with the young man and his clever trick, and took him with him to his tent and brought him food and drink. The shepherd said to the young man, "I will give you 3 sheep as a gift from me for what you have done, to take with you when you leave." The young man said, "Your gift is acceptable, but I cannot take them with me now. Leave them with you to graze with your sheep until I return." The young man bade farewell to the shepherd and continued his journey in search of a nearby town to live in. The young man was happy with what he had given the shepherd and that he was the reason for his joy and happiness. On the way, the young man found a faraway village, so he headed towards it and entered it. He found a well on the side of the road and a beautiful girl sitting beside the well, crying bitterly. The young man was astonished by what he saw, so he approached the girl and asked her about the reason for her crying. She said to him, "In this well there is a huge snake with 7 heads. They do not allow us to fill the water except on one condition, that a girl from the village sacrifices herself every day and throws herself into the well to be food for the snake until the water spring opens for us. Otherwise, we will not get any water. Today it is my turn to sacrifice myself, and I must throw myself into the well now." The young man said to her, "What are you saying? Didn't any of you try to get rid of her?" She said, "We tried to kill her before, but she only had 3 heads. When the men cut off one of her heads, 2 more came out in its place, until they reached 7 heads. At first, she asked for a sheep every day. One day, when people tried to kill her the first time, she got angry and stopped the water supply for a week and asked for a camel every day to bring us back the water. On the 3rd attempt, her anger intensified and stopped the water supply for a month until people were about to die. She demanded that we bring her a girl from the village every day as punishment for trying to kill her. From that day on, we have been bringing her a girl every day until it was my turn, and I am the daughter." The young man was surprised by what he heard. He said to the girl, "Don't worry, we will find a solution, God willing, and we will rid the city of the evil of this snake." The girl said, "There is a solution, but it is difficult." He asked her, "What is the solution?" The girl said to the snake, "If one of the 7 heads is cut off, it will die immediately. But the problem is, how will we know which head is the real one? If we cut off one of its other heads, 2 more will come out in its place, just as we did before." The young man was silent for a while, thinking, then said, "I have a solution. I have come up with a trick that will enable us to know the real head and cut it off." The girl asked, "What is the trick?" The young man replied, "When the snake eats, it will eat with its real head. To know that, We will make a doll and dress it in girls' clothes. When the snake comes out, we will throw it to it. The snake will attack to eat it, and before it realizes that it is a doll, I will attack it with my sword and cut off its head." The girl was convinced by the idea and hurried to prepare what the young man had asked for. After a while, the plan was ready to be executed. They placed the doll next to the well and waited for the snake to come out. When the time came, the snake came out and grabbed the doll with its mouth. The girl was very happy and thanked him and said to him, "Come with me to the palace." The young man refused, and he said to her, "Go back to your palace and I will leave." When the girl returned, people shouted, "This is not fair." The girl ran away and did not sacrifice herself. People gathered around the palace, angry. The king went out and asked his daughter, "Why did you return?" She said, "The snake is dead." And she told her father the whole story. The king ordered a search for the young man and bring him to the palace. The guards went out looking for the young man and then returned to the king, saying, "We did not find a stranger in the town except for one young man sitting by the mosque, but his appearance did not seem that he could kill an ant." The king became angry and said, "Why did you not bring him? Come, bring him, and my daughter will recognize him." The guards went and brought the young man. He stood before the king. The girl recognized him and said, "This young man is the one who killed the snake." The king said to him, "I am impressed by your intelligence and wisdom, and I am happy with what you have done. You have saved the city from a great evil that we have all been unable to get rid of for years. Therefore, we will not let you leave. You will live with us in the palace, and I will marry you to my daughter whose life you saved." The young man and the girl were happy with the king's decision, and the people were happy with the death of the snake. They held celebrations for 7 nights, and the young man married the girl and lived with her in happiness and bliss. And at that time, his brother saw the tree grow and become green, so he knew that his brother is fine and happy in his life. One day, the young man was getting ready to go. The king met him and asked him, "Where are you going?" The young man said, "I am going on a hunting trip in the nearby desert." The king said, "Don't go too far towards the mountain. There is an evil magician who lives in a cave at the top of the mountain, and whoever gets near him will be affected by his magic and get sick, and his recovery will be very difficult." The young man said, "Don't worry, I won't go there." The young man packed his bags and got on his horse and left. While he was walking on the road, he was thinking about the magician. Curiosity took him to go to the mountain and find out the truth about him. He thought that the king was exaggerating in his words and that no harm would come to him. The young man headed towards the mountain and stood in front of the cave carrying his sword and waiting for the magician to come out. After a while, the magician came out of his cave. He looked terrifying. He saw a young man riding his horse and carrying a sword. The magician knew that the young man wanted to kill him. Before the young man got off his horse, the magician grabbed his stick and spoke incomprehensible words. A ray of lightning came out of the stick in the direction of the young man and his horse. They fell to the ground immediately, unable to move. The magician laughed loudly and mockingly, leaving them unable to move and in pain. He entered his cave. On the way, a shepherd stopped him, thinking that he was the orphan young man whom he had saved from the wolves, as they looked very similar. The shepherd said to him, "Your sheep have increased. Come and take them." He knew that his brother had passed by, so he told him, "I will return." He left him and continued on his way. He passed by a village, and people shouted for him. He got off his horse and talked to them. He knew that his brother lived here and that he was married to the king's daughter. He hurried to the king's palace and asked him about his brother. The king was amazed by the great resemblance between them. At first, he thought that he was his daughter's husband. He told him, "He went on a hunting trip, and I warned him not to go towards the mountain. It seems that he did not listen to me." The young man said to the king, "I know that my brother is not well, and I will go to him now to save him." The king refused and said, "Wait, my son. If you go alone, you will be affected by magic just like him. Wait, and we will find a solution." The king ordered the most prominent fortune tellers in the city to be brought. When they arrived, the king told them the story and asked them to think of a way to get rid of the magician and save his daughter's husband. One of them said, "There is a way, but it requires a lot of effort and many men." The king asked him, "What is the way?" The old man said, "There is a herb in a faraway place in the desert. We have to collect a large amount of it and go to the mountain and burn the herb everywhere around it. Its smoke will rise to the mountain and emit a smell that will stop his magic for a short period." The king said, "Okay. In the meantime, we will attack the magician and kill him before his magic returns to him." The people of the city gathered, brought the herbs, and went out to the mountain. They set fire to the herbs around the mountain, and thick smoke emanated from it. The magician came out of the cave, confused and unable to concentrate. At that moment, the young man quickly snatched his sword and killed the magician. He went to his brother and found him lying on the ground, exhausted and sick. He carried him and returned with him to the palace. The fortune tellers began treating him with herbs until he was healed and regained his health. His brother embraced him and said to him, "I will not leave you from today onwards. No matter what happens, you will come with me and stay by." After much insistence, the orphan brother agreed to what the king said. His brother took his wife and children and said goodbye to the king. The king was sad and said to him, "I will not stand in your way. Go as you wish." He gave him many gifts and money and entrusted him with his daughter. On their way back, they passed by a shepherd who stopped them and gave the young orphan his sheep after they had multiplied and increased in number. The orphan brother had money and sheep to live on. They arrived at the town, so the orphan brother built himself a new house and lived next to his brother's house. He lived with his wife and children in happiness and comfort. They never parted from that day on. We learn from the story that a brother is an irreplaceable blessing. He is the support in good times and bad. Whoever has reached the end of the story with us, leave us a message in the comments. From which country are you watching us? Until we meet in the